actually got most of it on the paper this time. Good job, buddy. Hi, cars are out. Hereby declare that 23 will be the best year yet. Let's be honest, babe, it's not a very high bar to clear.
I didn't know any of you were still alive. What was it like to lose everything in a day?
Welcome back to the channel, guys. I hope you're having a great evening. So we want to talk today in this video about there are big YouTubers out there who just seem to be anti this Supergirl film that's coming out, but I also think just anti the gunverse, right? They're anti what's happening with DC and James Gunn specifically. So I want to get my thoughts on that a little bit. So I think part of the issue that I'm seeing with a lot of what's been happening with some of the critical reviews of what's happening with the DC universe, right? And comic book reviews and movies from specific big YouTubers. I'm not going to name their names. I'm pretty sure that many of you know who watch the, who watch these reviews. I'm pretty sure many of you all already know who I'm talking about. So we know that there are some channels that are political. That's not a problem. Comic books have, since their beginnings, put the political elements of the day in their stories, right? And so this has been an ongoing thing. And so it's nothing wrong per se with having the political landscape integrated into your comic book movies and genres, as it were. I myself, when I'm invested in certain characters, I'm invested in those characters for particular reasons. And if you change those reasons, if you change things about the character, then you're changing that comic book hero. So all those things make sense to me, and I don't disagree there. I like when they keep. And guys, if the video is a little bit disjointed, it's because I've literally been interrupted several times filming this video, and when I come back, I can't quite remember where I am. So sorry if it seems like it kind of pauses as I go into one subject or another. But I remember we were discussing politics and comic book films, and so the big YouTuber community I'm speaking of are these mega YouTubers that will not be named. I'm not going to name their names because you guys already know who they are. There's a word that comes up quite a lot in the YouTube space, and that's grifters, right? It is a word that's gained a lot of fame in the last several years. And the good thing about being a small YouTuber like me, few thousand subscribers off the radar, and why I kind of always like being in that position was because I'm still free to say what I want, right? When you get into these mega categories of YouTube, right, you're making a lot of money, right? And you don't want to see that money gone. That means as a creator, as a content creator, you got to give the people exactly what they want, right? And unfortunately, I think what's happened with a lot of some of these mega YouTubers who've, instead of staying on the content, as it were, right? These comic book films, critiques that are genuine and such, reviews, etc. They mix all these political, woke, identity politics type things, subjects into the content, right? And the problem with that is, whereas I said earlier, I do agree with, ideally, if I've come onto your properties, right? Your your comic book intellectual property. And I've embraced your storytelling. Um, sure, I identify with this character, how you created them, right? And so if you mix this character up, it's, not the character I'm invested in. Yes, there is a understandable issue with that, right? Especially when it's done for some political reason outside of the storytelling element. The problem I'm finding with some of these big YouTubers that are kind of falling into this grift idea, right? These grifting big YouTubers, is that there are many times when these characters are comic book accurate and they still have a problem if it's a woman or if it's a minority or something along those lines. And it's a problem because then you start to wonder, are you getting genuine reviews or are these reviews politically charged, right? You understand what I'm saying? And as a small YouTuber, I feel freedom in that I can still stick to the comic book content. Like, I don't have to try to draw certain communities of people that subscribe to this type thing because I'm under pressure or I'm under some type of financial woes or something like that. Or even in the event I'm directly or indirectly connected to the people who's producing certain content, certain studios, certain directors, to the point uh, I'm showing a lot of favoritism to the review of the material based on my relationship with them. Like, so it's like having a friend and you're like, well, I'm not going to talk bad about my friend. I'm not going to give an honest review or critique based on that, right? And I think we suffer when those things occur. So what we're starting to see is in this Supergirl movie, right? This trailer, rather, is we're starting to see already before the trailer can even get off and going, these big YouTubers once again on the grift, right? On this political grift, on of these political ideologies, and they're already hating on, the film right away. Um, and we're going to discuss why that's a problem in many respects. So the first problem being in this trailer, in this Supergirl trailer, what we're getting a lot of pushback, or what a lot of pushback is that, oh, it's this James Gunn vision, right? Mind you, James Gunn is not directing this film, but still it's the same. They feel it's the same influence, right? So it's this James Gunn woke, right, political leftist ideology, right? And what's happening with that is because of that, we're going to get a lot of weird stuff. We're going to get basically what James Gunn did over at Marvel, which is going to be Supergirl / Guardians of the Galaxy in space. Um, and so that's what's been a lot of the drive of the hate uh, with this trailer so far. Now, the only problem with all of that is that so the problem with that is that Supergirl, right, and Woman of Tomorrow, which it seems that the direction of the film will be based on. The issue is that many of the elements we're seeing throughout the trailer is very much like the comic book, right? So that would then suggest that this isn't a Guardians of the Galaxy rip, right? What you're seeing is how the actual writer, right, of the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, right? How he set up uh, this story. And so, yes, Supergirl's in this fantastical universe in out in space, meeting all types of races of people. And so it's more so that it's incidental, right, to what happened in Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Now, as well, if that's not enough, for many people, the actual writer of the comic book Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is actually involved with the movie, right? And so that means that they can pick his brain, they can go directly to him. And it would seem like so far from what we're seeing, they're going precisely with his vision, right? The going back to that Guardians of the Galaxy claim, Supergirl in the trench coat, right? Why is she wearing this trench coat over her Supergirl costume, right? Uh, Maybe she's trying to rip off Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy. Again, she's wearing it in the comic books and such, right? And so, um, the issue with all of that is uh, many of these big YouTubers again are basically saying things like, oh, that's what it is. It's going to be this James Gunn woke, uh, basically, uh, Guardians of the Galaxy story, right? With the weird comedy. Now, here's the thing, too, I would like to say. Now, we know Lobo's in the movie, right? So Lobo's in, if you look at the how Lobo is presented in many depictions, even before James Gunn was involved and so on and so forth. The character of Lobo, I believe they're called Zarnians, right? Um, he comes in with a very dark comical element. We know Lobo has always been that way, right? So what they do is they tend to go, well, this is that weird James Gunn dark humor again, and it's out of place. It doesn't fit into this story, right? But the thing about it is that, uh, and I'm sure many people will agree with me if they've seen how Lobo is presented in the comic books, how he's been presented in animated series, and not just animated series, even live action series. A lot of people aren't familiar with the show Krypton. I love that show, right? I think it ran for about 2 seasons on the Sci-Fi Channel, right? And it was basically about Superman's grandfather, Seg. Um, and in that, they actually encounter Lobo, right? Lobo's around in that time, and Lobo's this comical figure, right? He's this, but dark at the same time. You certainly don't want to mess with him. And I could see Lobo's going to be played like that. I just got this feeling, feeling Jason Momoa's energy, and how I've seen him in other things. I can see him pulling it off well, but I can also see that they're going to go that route with it. And I think that fits well into the James Gunn universe. So I guess the point I'm making is that what these big YouTubers are doing, this is a situation where they're trying to kind of push that narrative, they do it, some of them, and you guys know the ones I'm talking about, but they do it quite often now. But I think this is one of those times where they're missing the mark altogether, where it doesn't fit at all. Now, again, I've agreed with them in some ideas of like, okay, if you're going to change the entire character, right? Yeah, whether you're going to just gender swap them, or whether you're just going to just change their whole story so much from the comics they're almost unrecognizable, right? Then in those cases, right, I don't feel like I'm getting the hero I signed up for, and so that part's understandable. But the grift, or as they call it, has expanded so much with these guys, right? That now they're just doing it on anything they can do it on, right? Regardless of the comic book material. And that's a huge issue, guys. That's a huge problem. I don't know why you guys watch those guys. I don't think I would. I think I would rather watch somebody like me. But in any event, whether their channels have been good or they covered the content well, uh, that's not adding a good look to reviewing the comic, because it comes off disingenuous. It comes off like their main motive is just to push the idea that you know what I mean, that that grift thing, to just kind of push the we want to talk about the politics of race and identity and things like that. That's become the focal point over the comic book material, right? Um, and I think that's unfortunate. And it's why I don't watch those guys. Um, and so this is one of those situations where, yes, the direction they tried to take this with, it does not work. It doesn't work. Now, again, yeah, you can raise concerns about, James Gunn, as far as, and again, James Gunn's not directing this movie, so we don't even know at this point how much of that James Gunn element is going to be in this film. Because people are already saying things like this might end up being a rated R serious film, because there are things that happens in the story, right, that take a dark turn um, throughout this story. And so this could be an opportunity to make Supergirl uh, one of DC's first rated R properties. And this would be idea to do it with, because as you can see, even when you look at the trailer, Supergirl's saying Superman only sees the truth. He sees the good in people, but I see the truth in people. So Supergirl's already distinguishing herself from Superman, as to say, I'm not Superman, right? I'm not Earth's hero. And even if you want to take the dig at James Gunn and say something like James Gunn is, uh, basically involved with this film, or his influence hangs so heavy that whoever is under the DC umbrella, they're going to have to move with his influence, and so a lot of their movies are going to come off just like a James Gunn film, either way you look at it. Even if you were to go with that, that idea, and something to that effect, uh, you still would have to agree that Supergirl is, of the superhero rank list, at best a B-lister. And so she's not like the top, she's not going to be the first round pick of the Justice League. Supergirl's not most of the time, right? She comes in like backup squad or something like that. And many ideas of where Supergirl fits in. And so with that, then James Gunn seems to be a master of these B-listers, right? Like what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy. He seems to do much better with Peacemaker, right? All these people who we didn't, take a second look at, right? They were just heroes in the universe, and if they popped up, okay, cool. But to build a whole universe around kind of like these B-lister DC guys, like what Gunn did with Marvel, that's an impressive talent and ability. And because of that, because people feel that James Gunn influence and they feel something like that could happen, some are predicting that Supergirl might be grossing more than even Superman. Like, she might actually hit the $1 billion mark. Now, do I believe that? Yes, that is possible. And let me tell you why I believe that's possible, right? A rated R DC movie, right? Something like what we got with Deadpool, dark humor, bit here, serious topics interwoven in. I can see them pulling that off with Supergirl, and I can see it being such a shock to comic book watchers and such a surprise to them that it hits them, and they like it, right? Um, that they can be surprised by this film. I've seen it happen before, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there is a potential that something like that could happen, right? But that's all I really want to say about the video. That we're getting reviews and critiques of things that I don't think's done in a professional way. anymore, especially from a lot of the large YouTube community. And again, I think that's unfortunate. But when you're a big YouTuber, you know, like I brought up earlier, uh, it kind of it feels almost like, you know, you might have your underground artists. You know, those are the people who aren't mainstream. They're not making the big millions of dollars, but they're more free to be more creative, right? And then you have those mainstream people that got to play ball, and mainstream, they got to be this carbon copy, pop icon type thing, right? That they can play on the radio over and over again, right? That's how YouTube feels to me, like with the mega YouTubers. And then what it becomes is they got to follow the grifts, right? Everybody has to follow the grifts, because if they don't follow the grifts, they can't eat, right? If they don't follow the grifts, their channels can't grow, right? And so they do these things, and unfortunately, what eventually happens is people start to see through the grift, and it backfires on them. Eventually, it harms them. They start to lose subscribers to the point it runs out, because at the end of the day, people still don't like when people aren't authentic, when they aren't genuine. And it catches up, it comes back and it catches up with them. And I predict that a similar thing is going to happen with this. But that's all I wanted to say in this video. Guys, tell me if you like the Supergirl trailer. Do you think it's just going to be another uh, Guardians of the Galaxy in space and such? Let us know. And until next time, as always, take care of yourselves and each other.